partners, their children, and other professionals such as pension providers, to be able to test whether their plans for retirement are practical and affordable, both in the immediacy and in the longer term. To understand and prioritise habits that nurture positivity and happiness and lead to a healthier and longer life, and to explore using our time pie model how to set realistic expectations about time management in retirement. So we would love you to talk to us as we progress through this this webinar today. So can we start by using the chat box, please, to tell us, where are you in this process? Have you set a date for retirement? Is retirement some way off in the future? Is it imminent? Are you leaving tomorrow? Where are you? How are you facing into retirement? And while you do that, I am absolutely delighted to introduce you to Caroline Waters, who will take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, and hello, everybody. Each of the sections we're going to cover in the next 45 minutes or so could be a day-long course, but we hope this brief taster will just give you an opportunity to help shape your thoughts on retirement. We only have time to introduce you to just one framework of many, but we hope it will help you to explore what you want and need from retirement and to effectively plan for a retirement that is aligned to your wants and needs. Now, I can see that some of you are fairly imminent in terms of retirement and some of you are a long way off, and that's really great, because either way, it gives you an opportunity to start to plan now, and that's the exciting bit, really. So our focus today is on retirement skills, but the skills, techniques and framework we will share with you are actually life skills that can help you plan or respond to many of life's transitions. So for those of you with a much further out timescale, you can start to apply these skills that we will show you today to that period intervening between now and your future retirement date. So we'll introduce you to the happiness equation, life pies and time pies, how they work together and how they can aid decision making. Now, most of you have spent a career in public service, and I'm going to ask you to do something that will probably feel a little uncomfortable, even counterintuitive after a life of service. For the rest of the webinar, I want you to promise to be a little bit selfish. I want you to put yourself, your family, your aspirations and dreams at the centre of this conversation. There is a reason why they tell us to put our own oxygen masks on first. And retirement is an extraordinary opportunity to release the combined skills and experience that you've gathered throughout your life and career and use them to create a happy and healthy future for yourself, those you love, and maybe even for society as a whole. Investing a little in yourself now and really thinking about it can help turn the opportunity you dream of into your reality. There are lots of factors to take into consideration when deciding to retire, and as somebody who's been through that, it really is true. And of course, we're not always in control of when we leave a particular role or career, but we can decide and plan for what we would like to happen next. The framework that we will share with you this afternoon is deliberately designed to offer the maximum flexibility possible. My greatest wish is that you will use and adapt it to your preferred learning and working style, drawing on it whenever you are facing significant changes or one of life's many transition points. For example, my husband and I have just used it to decide whether we want to stay in our current home or not. And in fact, it really helped us decide that, yeah, that's right for us. We do want to stay there. So the skills we give you now, you can apply to most of the things that will happen in your life. Deciding when is the right time to retire and what that retirement might look like can be fraught. For some, it can feel like stepping into a whole string of unknowns. For most of us, the two biggest decisions are related to the questions: am I ready to retire, and is retirement affordable? Developing a vision of what your retirement will look like gives you the opportunity to test it now for fit and for affordability. From your chat responses, it looks like retirement is coming up fairly soon for some of you, but for others, a little bit further out. So I think this is probably a really timely point to start to think about these things a bit more deeply. So as you start to consider retirement, how would you describe or characterize the retirement persona you have in mind for yourself? It might include a combination of the following retirement desires, which you're going to see on screen just now, developed from a variety of responses to a survey by Skipton Building Society and conversations with literally hundreds of people on retirement planning courses. What do you think you are? Do you see yourself as an adventurer, ready to travel and try new things? Maybe you're an activity seeker who wants to allocate lots of time to hobbies and getting on top of the garden. Maybe you're more of a comfort seeker, wanting to create memories with friends and families and just to live comfortably. I think I'm a bit of a knowledge seeker, spending time reading, exploring new concepts and getting to know myself. But I'm also a worker and have discovered a rich source of fulfillment and income from a mixed portfolio of paid and unpaid work in retirement. In truth, most of us want a combination of all of these retirement desires, and therefore we have a combined persona. We'll want to enjoy variety in retirement, the same as we have in our earlier life. It's therefore important to think about how you want to spend your time and how much time you are prepared to allocate to each of your retirement personas. This is why we will go on to consider allocating time and resources to what makes you happy. Happiness, you think maybe is a bit of a subjective concept, but the links between happiness and health and how to ensure you have the right level of financial security for you are imperative if you are to build a really happy and sustainably healthy and enjoyable retirement. So I want you to visualize a circle or a pie. Now, thinking about how you see yourself in retirement, put in the chat an example of what you might want to include in your retirement pie. This might be time for friends and family, maybe travel, maybe getting better at existing hobbies or trying new ones. It might be about sport, chores. We can't quite do away with those in retirement, or just relaxing. And I think now is a really good time to give you one really great piece of advice that my doctor gave me, which is don't let anyone tell you that a day spent doing nothing is a wasted day. Gosh, there's lots of great stuff here in the chat. Getting healthy, that's a very common one. Improving a lifetime, spending more time with friends and family, learning more, doing a degree in photography, volunteering, traveling comes up a lot. Adventures, I love that. Hobbies like crafts and carpentry, watching daytime TV. I think that one's a bit tongue-in-cheek. More time with the grandchildren, garden. Gosh, great, not working. And that's a really interesting point, isn't it? So let's move on to really think about those things. So some really interesting things there. So how have you landed on these choices? Does it give you the opportunity to connect with others, use the skills you've collected to enrich your life and maybe that of others? Who will you be spending your time with? Are you happy to be alone? Have you made sure it will work for your partner and your family? I love that somebody's saying here, I'd like a quiet life, doing what I want to do. Yeah, that's a great desire for retirement. But to help us with this bigger task of thinking how we can fit all these wonderful things into our life pie and seeing whether they're actually affordable for us, we also have to think about that happiness equation. Now, neuroscience has developed so much in the last decade. Science has indicated 3 very simple forms of happiness that need to be nurtured throughout our lives in order to retain healthy levels of mental well-being. They are the simple life, the good life, and the meaningful life. Now, the simple life brings that saying about the best things in life are free right into context. It's a walk in the park, the smell of roses in the morning, relaxing with a good book or a glass of wine. It's intimacy or spirituality. It's all about feeding our inner selves, being healthy from the inside out. The good life is about connecting with people and having a wide network of people who support and challenge us. It's really important that we continue to be introduced to new ideas or hobbies, and that we can share our amassed skills and experience with others. Now, it could be with family and friends. Lots of you have talked about grandchildren, and there's a wonderful opportunity to share all the wisdom that we've gathered over years with them, if they'll listen to us, that is. But of course, it's also about meeting new people, perhaps through travel or hobbies or clubs. And then there's the meaningful life, which often feels more relevant as we age. And that is about feeling part of something bigger than ourselves. Maybe you have a cause, maybe it's related to the careers that you've developed. I've just been working with a group who worked in the housing sector, and they're really concerned as they move into retirement to continue to work on things like homelessness and improving the housing stock. So it's really interesting how we get these things. Now, at any time, those three images, they could overlap. They could be bigger at times than others, and at different times in our lives, the circles are smaller or larger. The simple life is huge as we hit teenage years. The meaningful life tends to grow as we age and think about our legacy and what we have achieved. And that's often a theme that runs through retirement. How aware we are of the circles and how they shape our mental well-being, the happier and healthier we can be. Most importantly, we now have data that proves that nurturing happiness has such a positive impact on health that those who balance their lives across the three forms of happiness can expect to add up to 8 years of active longevity to their lives. Just think about that. What an investment in self and in your family. It's important to think about these happinesses and the activities that fill each slice of our life pie. For example, time with grandchildren is often a key desire, and I've seen lots of you talking about that. But be careful that you contract with your children that this doesn't mean, unless it's what you want to do, that you will do the school run every day. You need time to live your best life too, and to be the grandparent that builds memories, not just nags at the kids to be on time because it's hard to park. You know the gig. You may also need to contract for other time, for example, time with your partner, time on the computer. That was the bane of my life when I first retired. My husband had retired before me. He had a routine. And of course, here I was getting in his way and demanding things. So sometimes to take the heat out of things, it's better to talk about it and plan first. And also maybe taking on some of the domestic burden, but also in real seriousness, maybe earning is an important part of that contract too. So now we are starting to form an idea of what we'd like our retirement to look like, but can we afford that vision? Let's think about affordability and move on to planning for retirement. The thing we all struggle with as we transition into retirement is thinking about income as we stretch out into that great unknown. None of us know how long we're going to live for or what the world might throw at us. I can remember in my first year of retirement, I think every single electrical appliance in the house decided to die. All of its own accord. Who could have guessed that? So, you know, even the little things can just give us a little bit of a shake and say, are you on your game? Are you planned for this? So how will we be able to afford the level of lifestyle that makes us happy and keeps us well for the foreseeable future? when for most of us, realistically, retirement equals a reduction in income. I can't stress enough how important it is to really consider your philosophy toward money and your appetite for financial risk in retirement. Before you commit to any big financial decisions like moving home or map out a retirement littered with expensive travel and holidays, it's really important you think this through. Statistically, expenditure tends to peak at around 72 when we have generally acquired most of the possessions we need or want. But as we live longer, this could extend. And in any case, it is likely that expenditure will start higher, reduce in our 70s and grow again if we have to pay for our own elder care. And that's a really important thing to think about and potentially plan for. So what do I mean by philosophy to money? Well, let me share mine with you and how I arrived at it just as an example. I did my homework. I figured out a conservative estimate of my monthly expenditure, and I added a bit because I'm cautious by nature. And I thought about how long it might take me to plug any financial gaps and my capacity to earn if I needed to. The answer? Well, I think I'm a pretty capable and marketable person, well, most of the time. And as long as I know I can pay all my bills and have a little in reserve up to 18 months ahead, I'm comfortable that I can fix most things in that time or sell something. So I check regularly, act if necessary, and then I don't worry. And I think it's really important that you start to think about what your philosophy might be. Will it be different in retirement? Will it be the same as it is now? How might this affect your decision on things like working in retirement, for example? The big question to ask is your reduced income likely to be sufficient to more than meet your anticipated commitments and life activities? If no, do you reprioritise your life pies, or do you think about adding earning? These are the kind of questions that will help you build out that life pie so that you've got that right mix, that it's going to be happy, it's going to make you happy, which makes you healthy, which adds to your longevity and takes away worry because you've done your maths and you know that you can afford it. So let's talk about how you build financial confidence for your future. Financial confidence in retirement starts with some very simple budgeting. I'm HR, not finance. So, simple is good. You probably already do it, maybe monthly, quarterly, or annually. Let us know in the chat if you know, to a pretty decent level of accuracy, how much you spend now to maintain your current lifestyle, say over an average month or even over an average year. What has that taught you about your philosophy to money, to saving, to earnings, and to your appetite for risk? As you gather together your current financial requirements, think about what will change in retirement. I know I saved around £8,000 on travel costs and not needing so many formal work clothes, but the fuel bills at home went up a little. What else might reduce or increase your costs? And remember that you need to think of this in terms of earnings. That 8K saving actually meant that I needed to earn about £14,000 less per year to maintain my current standard of living. So what you are trying to work towards is a revised estimate of your monthly or annual outgoings. This will help you answer bigger questions like whether you can maintain your desired quality of life on your pension alone, or whether you need to earn in retirement and how much that gap is likely to be. Then that obviously leads on to next order questions like, do you pay your mortgage off or put money in an investment plan and create income that way? Most of you will have a number of choices around how and when you draw down both your occupational and national pensions. We don't have time to cover this in detail today, but your pension scheme advisor can talk you through the options. For example, I chose to take my pension early, exchange some for an immediate tax-free lump sum, some of which I used to create longer-term investment income. But that decision may seem costly, but in fact, I break even with a reduced pension at 71. And in the meantime, I get my life back. It was the right choice for me and for my family. And it feels really good when you have done the planning and you know that that's the right outcome and you can feel happy and secure about it. So I'd really urge you to think more broadly around these things. So as you start to draw up your plans for retirement, think about that philosophy to money and what it means for the choices you might make. For example, are you confident that your pension choices, any investments and minimising costs will give you the quality and variety of life you want? If you are unsure, what are the actions you can take to become more confident? Because one of the really important things is, as you align what you want to do, as you align how that fits together with family and friends, as you align it to what's affordable, you may also need to align your own philosophies and the actions you take to make sure that you deliver it. So as we start to look to budgeting for retirement, I tend to think of this as a framework for aligning what you do or love doing with what you need to spend to do it. A sort of money meets the happiness equation conundrum. We have talked about the critical role that happiness plays in living a healthy, mentally and physically active retirement. Here we start to overlay the two in a very simple, but hopefully clear and helpful way. Using the happiness equation and realistically assessing what the things you might want to do in each circle or box might cost and how you budget for them is the first step towards that financial confidence and security that we all dream of in retirement. It's a great opportunity to deprioritise, and I've seen quite a few of you talk about decluttering and finding more time to keep everywhere just as lovely as you'd like it to be. But you know, retirement should be a simpler, kinder, more forgiving time for you. You're not running to somebody else's timetable anymore, you know, with the deadline stresses and anxiety that often go with that. You can take things at your pace, and that's a really important part of breaking into a retirement cycle. But imagine that under each happiness pot is a pot of money or budget. So activities in that first happiness pot, the simple life, you know, they're generally low cost or even free. In this country and around the world, we are blessed with great access to museums, parks, gardens, beaches, churches, historic walks, art galleries, and so much more. The historical and architectural legacy of our country is vast, and our access to it is largely free. Something like a weekly coffee with friends, a good book, or a glass of wine should all be within our basic budget, which is the first budgeting bucket and fits with the simple life. The budget from which we fund our normal monthly expenses and which should never be empty. Well, maybe at midnight on the 31st. The good life, which is all about connecting and using our skills to enrich conversations and lives, our own and others, is usually paid from within the next budgeting box, which is the lifestyle budget. Now, this can cover family get-togethers, days out with friends, holidays, periods of travel, learning new hobbies, maybe joining clubs, that season ticket for the football or E&O, or whatever you really want want to do. The meaningful life I usually associate with a nest egg or emergency budget. Now, that could be as simple as wanting to give money to an urgent crisis of some form, or about leaving a legacy in your will, or climbing Kilimanjaro to create earnings for a charity or a cause, or causes that you feel very strongly aligned to. So you should be ending up with a picture, 3 pots of happiness, and underneath it, 3 pots of different budgets. And you're looking at how you start to align them and what you think, you can't do it right now, but what you think you may want to spend. You know, we all need to go away and research how much that cruise to the Antarctic actually costs. But it's really important that you discuss this emerging vision of your retirement and how you will fund it with your partner and family. Openness and transparency at this stage is critical, especially if you haven't recently shared your thoughts on retirement. This is particularly important if your vision might include lengthy trips abroad, selling your home, moving away from family, which may seem great when you're younger, but when you've got grandchildren, that may be less appealing. Thinking about pet ownership, lots of people talk about getting a dog and going walking in retirement. Consulting, maybe you might want to do some consulting or make a regular commitment to volunteering, for example. These are all things that you need to think about, because they're all things that will take a slice of that time pie. Now, remember, your partner will also have been imagining your retirement together. And it could be a fundamentally different vision to the one you're forming. I often work with couples who are starting to plan their retirement together. And it's really interesting that, you know, maybe on a trip 30 years ago, somebody has decided that they'd like to go and live by the seaside. And that's been a strongly held view for all of those years. But for the other partner, their thoughts have changed. They've now become very established in their local community. They've got grandchildren, for example. You know, you have to be able to talk these things through. One of the things that people often talk about using their lifestyle budget to create is opportunities to find and secure deeper friendships. Over the course of our lives, we will probably only create a few deep, long-lasting friendships. Do not overlook the power of acquaintances to make you feel that you belong to a place or a community. There is growing evidence to suggest that acquaintances, people we may see often but rarely exchange more than a few words with, actually help us build the attachment skills we need to settle in new locations and habits. I've found this very true myself, having commuted for 30 years. And, you know, my home village was very much a dormitory place for me, working long hours. Now that I'm at home more and that I can walk my dogs in the morning, I see lots and lots of people that I just say hello to as we pass. We moan about the weather or taxes or the government on our way, and I'm feeling much more grounded in the village and understanding people around me. And I think that's something that is really important in terms of not putting ourselves under massive pressure to develop very deep friendships. If they're going to happen, they'll happen naturally, but acquaintances are a really powerful thing. So if I think now about putting all of that together, what that will let us do is really help us thrive in retirement. Thriving in retirement is really entirely possible for all of you if you really think about what that thriving means for you. It has to be a personalised experience. You know, how in tune you are with what makes you happy is important. You know, do you really know what gives you that extra little something that makes the world feel like a better place? We can't control all of it. For me, the world is always better under a blue sky, but I can't change that one. Take time to ponder these questions. Remember to feel as well as think your way to the answers. We may not be able to take control of everything, but we can populate the happiness equation, and we can tie down our expenditure and vary our income. We can train, we can apply for a new career, we can take on a paid NED position, or set up our own business in retirement. It just takes a different approach to CV writing, sharpening up on interview practice, and really capturing our business vision. All things we can learn how to do. Sadly, we don't have time to go through these things with you today, but they do feature in another course that we run. Once we know what we want, what is affordable, and what we are prepared to do to make it affordable, the most important thing, and perhaps the hardest thing, is to align our mindset to the plan and to ensure that we take the actions required to make it a reality. Excuse me. And remember too that importance I talked about of acquaintances. Psychology Today has recently published a study that demonstrates that smiling at and with other people, whether they be friends and family or complete strangers that we come across on the street, releases a host of good hormones into our bodies, and which enhance our health and lower everyone's stress levels. Right now, I'm going to hand back to the team to choose some of your questions so that we can explore those before we summarise and close. So we've got plenty of time. So let me just check here. Yeah, I guess slides will go out. We don't have examples of everything we've been talking about. Let's see what other questions we might hear.
Sendai, you've got your hand up. It says, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say there's one that I saw which was majority of everybody's question, which was, can you show examples of what you're talking about, please? Because I think we've gone through a lot of content, and I think people just want a rough idea, a rough example, or a little example of what we're just discussing. So maybe the question I should ask to everybody was, what type of example were you looking for? Then we can, I think that way we can take it from there, because I know that Caroline has shared a lot of content with you.
Right, there's a question here. What did you mean when you said this talking about me when I took a reduced pension? So when I left my full-term employment, I was in a similar scheme to the civil service pension that most of you will be familiar with. And on leaving, I had a choice to wait until I was pensionable age and take a full pension that hadn't been actuarially reduced, or take early an actuarially reduced pension. So a percentage had been removed from my pension for each year that I was taking it early. So what that meant to me was that if I looked at that reduced pension, was I actually going to get less money over the term of my retirement, or would I get more? I wanted to take that so that I could feel free to spend money before that magic age of early 70s, when we generally stop acquiring possessions and start to travel less. So for me, it was the right decision. So the point about 71 is, in my personal case, at age 71, I will, not there yet, but I will reach the point where there is an equalisation. So had I waited till I was pensionable age and taken a full pension versus taking a reduced pension early, by the time I'm 71, the amount of pension that I have received, including that lump sum, is the same. So that is equaling it out. Let's have a look what other questions we do. How do we calculate what our cost of living bill is going to be 5 years from now, e.g. food, heat, light, council tax, etc.? What you need to do is to establish the position for now. So once you know what it is today, that gives you a baseline. You can then start to look at projections, and I did this for myself. So I would factor in things like a cost of living increase, inflation. You can find all of this data there. But basically, if you are getting into the habit of looking at what your monthly or annual expenditure is as a routine, then it becomes more important the closer you get to retirement. So once you start to build that habit, you will have the information at your fingertips just before retirement when you need it. An example of the 3 pots, 3 budgets to help with planning would be good if possible. Okay, so remember we talk about 3 pots of happiness split across a simple
Caroline,
life.
can we see examples, please? Is it possible to see like written examples of the 3 pots and then, you know, examples of how you do that and then the budget? I zone out when I'm listening for too long, sorry.
No, that's
sorry.
The problem is I don't have access to a whiteboard, which is the way we normally share these things. But what we can do is we'll pop some examples out when we send the rest of the slides out.
Yeah, it'd just be nice while we're listening to kind of have a pro forma and just jot some things down ourselves. I think that's what I'm thinking.
Well, I mean, you can easily do that yourself. What I do is just I physically use the happiness equation, which you can see here. So the first image, obviously simple, middle one good, next one meaningful. Just lay those out like that, and then beneath them you just start to think about what it costs. So the first one, the simple life, you know, what do you, and this is why it's hard for you to do it right now, because you need to think about what you might do there. So are you going to go for a coffee with friends a couple of times a week? Or maybe you're going to have a lunch with a friend. You know, you start to plot out what that might look like, and therefore you can start to work out what a basic budget for that would be. The same with the middle one, which often people translate into, you know, kind of parties or travel. You can, you know, if you're planning that big cruise, then obviously you can start to work that out. But for a lot of people, it might be about saying, right, we're going to downsize, we're going to buy a camper van, and we're going to spend 6 months of every year traveling around. So before you can really start to budget it, you have to start to understand what that picture might look like and play around with the variables. And lots of people in here are sort of saying, look, you know, regardless of what stage of life you're in, doing a money diary is a really good idea. It helps you to understand what you want to spend on. And obviously your bank can also help you with this. You know, you can set up different accounts, and one couple I've been working on this, they've actually done it. So they've set up 3 accounts and they put money in and they monitor their expenditure against what they're doing to see what that would look and feel like. So lots of these things are about starting to experiment. And those 3 budgeting pots again are, you know, the simple life equates to a very basic budget. You know, it's not expensive things. Some of them are even free. That middle one, the good life, that is where we can spend lots of money on holidays and travel and hobbies. I mean, you know, any hobby can.
Caroline, your line's just muted somehow.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
Any hobby can be quite expensive if you're going to be really serious about it. So worth investigating those kind of things as well. And then that last one, the meaningful life, I think of that as a kind of, as I've said, a kind of emergency fund, but a sort of nest egg as well, because it can be about thinking what legacy you're going to leave. There's a question here about, are there recommended ways of investing lump sum to give additional retirement income, e.g. savings accounts, ISA stocks and shares? Again, this is a very personalised approach. We're not allowed to give financial advice, but what we do on the fuller course is we do provide a list of things that you can look at and people who can give you advice. There is a lot of great advice, a lot of great free advice if you go and speak to your own bank. Sometimes if you're a union member, they may also provide access to financial planning and those things, and it's something that you can actually invest in. I think an hour spent on paying for a financial advisor to work through the plan that you are putting together with you is a really good investment, both in terms of your time and in terms of the money that it takes to do that. Okay, what else have we got here? The challenge can be managing money as a couple. We've set up a Starling account which allows both of us to know in real time how much we're spending and how much is left. Not that my husband looks, he waits till the card is declined, but that at least stops unthinking overspending. Yeah, I think that's another great example. And, I found when I came to retirement that talking to lots of our friends who had already retired, there are loads of hints and tips to be found. But it is about starting to think about it now and starting to align your habits with the methodologies that will help you plan for retirement. This one's saying, oops, they're all jumping about. Like many people, I will have a number of pension sources. What tips do you have for managing these separate sources of income, easing this situation as one ages? Great question, and true for a lot of us, particularly people who have changed careers. What I would say is the first and most important thing to do is to get in touch with all the various pension sources you've got. Ask them to provide you with some clarity about the terms and the outline amounts of pension that they may give you. You can then start to make some choices about whether it might be a good idea to move them all to one provider. And you have choices about that, so that there are people who will help you manage that overall pot and bring them together. Or you may find that, and you need to take some pension advice on this, but it may be that you can transfer some pensions into the dominant pension that you have, and it may be that that will create greater value for you in that way, as well as simplifying things. So again, it's quite a complex subject. We need a lot more time than is available to us today, but there are some basic things that you can start doing now. And I would really encourage anyone who's got lots of different pension outlets to start to get in touch with them, find out what the terms of that payment are, what your choices are, and how much it's likely to be, so that you can start to consider what's the right action, so that when you come to retirement, you've got a much clearer picture. Yes, and that's very good advice too. When budgeting, it's worth checking what happens if you're in a pair, if one of the pair dies. So what's this? When budgeting, it's worth considering that one major cost of a working life that goes away once you retire, assuming you've hit your financial goals for retirement, is the cost of funding that retirement, e.g. pension contributions that come out of your earned income. And, that's very true. For most of us, that's a significant percentage of our salary each month. And it does make a big difference. And when I talked about, that piece about thinking which parts of your budget will reduce in retirement. That is definitely one of them. One of the things that I think is quite important when you're planning around that is to always think in net terms. So looking at your income, you have the actual amount of money that comes into your account every month. That is your, that is your post-tax. I'm just checking I'm not muted again. Post-tax income, and that is your net income, and that is the real money that you're dealing with. So it says here, yeah, Money Supermarket is, not that we can recommend any one particular area, but it is one of many that do a good job around that. And it, one of the things I've found with working with people on this is that many people actually have pensions that they've forgotten about. And even though they may seem relatively small, if you have 2 or 3 of those, it can be quite a contribution, even if it's only £2,000 or £3,000 a year. That could definitely fund that cup of coffee or meal out once a week, or those gym fees. And therefore it's worth really thinking about all of these. This one, so how does tax and NI affect your pension? It's just the same. Pension is still income, and depending on how much your pension is, you will fall into the normal taxation brackets. Obviously, depending on how you take your pension, you do have the option of taking, in most of the schemes that civil servants are likely to be part of, you do have the option of taking a tax-free lump sum, or at least part of your pension as a tax-free lump sum. At the moment, we just don't know what may happen as we go further into this current term of government around that. Any tips for managing finances if I plan to sell up in the UK and retire abroad? E.g., can I keep a UK bank account, get my pension paid into it, and then transfer what I need over to my foreign account each month? So yes, it is possible to do that. Or you can, obviously, because you will have an address in whichever country you're moving to, you can set up your accounts there. Very difficult to predict the impact of different rates of inflation, different currency rates, as to which is the better option. But again, if it's something you're thinking about doing, I would start looking at what the different interest rates and payment charges and things look like in the different countries, and seeing what may be the best way. Some people I've worked with keep a sort of peppercorn income in the UK and transfer the rest to their new country of choice. But again, it's about knowing what's going to work best for you. And also, maybe if, for example, you're going to be in the UK regularly because you have family and friends here, thinking about, is it better to be spending in the in situ currency? Of course, we also, lots of us will use credit cards and things, and credit cards can automatically adjust now for variances in currency. So again, it's worth thinking about that. What else we got? Right, how does the meaningful life differ from the good life? So the good life is very much about connecting with people, either people you know, like friends and family, or people that you're less familiar with. You're making new friends, or you're getting to know your neighbours, or something like that. The meaningful life is about having a purposeful engagement with something that's bigger than you. That might be about volunteering in your local community. It might be about a cause that you're passionate about, but it is something that you definitely feel that you can give something to, that you're bringing something to. And it's often where we start to ask ourselves questions as we age and we move into retirement about what is our legacy. People often talk to me about questions like, you know, how do I know I've done the thing I was put on this earth to do? You know, that's such a personal question. We all have to figure that out. But often that question is answered by looking at what we've done that is meaningful in life. And that is often through a cause or through giving or through volunteering. So they are quite different concepts, actually. Okay, what else have we got here? Ooh. Right, question here. What is the best time of year to retire from the civil service pension in terms of receiving the annual increase? I plan to retire at the end of March, but someone told me to wait until the new tax year. So there's a couple of things there. Obviously it depends when you're not all pensions pay the annual increase at the same time. So that's one of the things you need to do, is figure out when that's going to happen. If you start to take your pension in a new tax year, then obviously that is the only income, plus any else you might decide to earn down the way, that you will pay tax on in that year. So there is a very clean break there, and that can be helpful for planning. If you are starting to collect your pension midway through a year, it may be that your previous earnings will mean that those earnings plus pension put you into a higher tax band, and that can obviously have a negative impact on your earnings. So, you know, there are pros and cons, but again, this is part of that financial conundrum that you need to think about. And it's brilliant that you've all obviously been thinking quite deeply about these things, because these are all exactly the questions that we would normally expect to see, and that we talk about in our longer course. Great question here. How do you wind down into retirement from rushing around on the hamster wheel to stopping? Again, fabulous question. We get asked this a lot, and sometimes it's tied into a supplementary question about, you know, once I retire, how do I, you know, what's my motivation for getting up in the morning? And that's why we plan, because both of those questions are asked by having a really strong vision of what you will want to do. So how do you wind down? That's about building in your own mind your glide path into retirement. So for some people, it's about reducing the number of days they work during the last year in the run-up to retirement. For others, it's about doing some of the you know, life's laundry, decluttering before they retire, so that when they actually retire, particularly their first 6 months or so, are just full of all the positive stuff that they've planned. But they also have that kind of journey plan, so that they're not just having a really hard stop. We do know that having a really hard stop for retirement can be difficult. It can have a negative impact on mental and physical well-being. Okay, I think we're getting a bit tight on time, so I'm going to hand back to the team.
Thank you.
Okay, so over to you, Tunde.
Thank you. What I also say is great webinar. So everybody, thanks, and please, can we just share a round of applause with Caroline? And can you hear me now? Or am I still now? Yeah, so if you actually don't have a full day course with them to just probably delve a bit deeper. The data on the left-hand side, we do offer face-to-face or virtual. You can get in contact with my colleagues, Shweta or Deborah, and they'll be able to support you respectively. But like we said, we'll be monitoring this chat box until 4 p.m. So if you have any pressing questions, or even if we missed something, I know Caroline and Helen will also be responding to you. And obviously, thank you for making the time to join us again. And we still got 3 minutes. So ask away. Paul has got a question. If you can, Paul, can you ask?
Sorry, that was an incorrect hands up.
That's fine. It's never incorrect. It's fine. We're happy to always collaborate with everybody, engage with everybody. So don't worry about that. Many questions. It's not a problem at all. I would say we're monitoring the chat box until 4. So even if there's something you want to ask, then please do. Thank you, everybody, for the thank yous.
Yes, and good luck for everybody.
Thank you very much.
We finish with this, the most useful and informative hour I've spent at work this week. Thank you, David. That's great to hear.
That is good. Thank you very much. So, Sean, there's a few questions actually. We're gonna have to pick those up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sandy.
They're hard to spot in between the rest.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Petra. Val as well. Please can you mail? Yeah, we will do that as well, Val. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you as well. Cheryl and Linda, thank you as well. Anybody else that I say thank you so quickly. David has got a question. We'll pick that up as well. Yes, Chanel, we will give you access